For the final time today, I get to introduce another one of our brilliant speakers here at Jobs Expo in Croke Park. And final speaker for today, her name is Orla Donagher. She's founder of Interview Tutor. She has over 15 years experience in personnel management, and there's three things she specialises in: career consultancy, interview coaching, and CV writing skills training. I suppose in a sense people might look on writing their CV, and maybe this just might be me, but it's almost like, what would I put on my dating profile? And then what would I put on my CV? You want to put forward your best side from two totally different aspects. So you have your top 10 tips for writing a winning CV and acing the interview. For our final speaker today, I would love if you give her a lovely warm round of applause. It's Orla Donagher.
Thank you all very much. I've been told that security will probably kick us out around 4, so I don't want to rush this. I want to give you some chance to ask some questions at the end. So please do give me a nod if I'm flying through this. We've a bit to cover. As Ruth said, my name is Orla Donagher. I'm a founder of Interview Tutor. My main area of specialisation is, writing CVs, interview coaching, and also a career consultation. So the first item I want to talk to you about today is your CV. An awful lot of people were coming up to me there at the clinic there all day today, and they're asking about the CV. The main areas that I'd like to talk about with the CV would be the following. And for anyone that sat down with me at the clinic, I was telling everybody this. The main thing to remember with the CV is the first 6 seconds, they're saying, according to research, is when hiring managers are making their mind up. So what that basically means for you when you're applying for a job is that you need to hit the ground running. You need to make immediate impact with your CV. So when you're writing your career paragraph, your profile section, is that needs to be extremely tailored and relevant. So no insipid statements, no generic paragraphs. You need to go back to your job spec, you need to look exactly what they're looking for, and you need to feed all that information through to that paragraph. Okay. As I said there, it's only worth using if it's well structured and it is effective. Okay. The other aspect is it should be no longer than a paragraph in length. What you're trying to do is whet their appetite, draw them in, get them all warm and fuzzy about you straight away. Okay. And the other aspects is that it needs to be relevant, as I said. Pick competencies as well, and go back to the spec. What competencies have they listed on that job spec? So are they talking about communications important to them, teamwork, attention to detail? Go back and think, right, have I actually done that? Yes, genuinely I can. Can I back that up? And then you make sure you get it into the paragraph there. Do you know what the company does? You know, are they telecommunications? Have you come from a telecommunications background? No matter what the industry is, if there's some link between you and them, you need to make it. You need to join the dots throughout your CV, and especially at the paragraph section. So this is the important thing to consider. Then the other thing is your unique selling points. So you're first of all looking at your selling points. So through the job spec, they'll list out the qualifications, the requirements that they need. You'll have identified that you've met most of that criteria, but the really shiny bit, and that's how you're really going to stand out, is you somehow managed to figure out that you have a unique selling point. And I gave a brief example of there. Let's say you're a software developer. It's a French company. Headquarters are in Paris, and you also have fluent French. That's a unique selling point. That's something that many people out there mightn't have, and it might set you aside from the other candidates. Content. A lot of people were coming up to me today about the CV, and they were saying, oh, look at the format, is it okay? And the main thing I'm saying to everybody is it's really the content. I mean, I think most people know that you have to make your CV look well and reader friendly, but it's really about what are you saying? What's the message through your CV? What information are you giving? And is that information relevant to the employer and the person reading your CV? It might help with this analogy if you use yourself like a product in marketing. Any of those marketing companies, and they've something to sell, that they will understand that you have to target that product. You don't just have a random campaign targeting everyone. You need to understand your audience. And it's the same concept with your CV. Look through the spec, and even if you're going for the same type of role, you're an accountant, ABC limit is different to the Googles, to the LinkedIn, to the small indigenous companies here. So they'll all be coming at it from a slightly different angle, and you need to understand that. Okay. I think, did that jump forward there? Okay. So just on that point, do also use concrete examples. So essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to articulate what you're going to bring to the table. If you're going to come on board with them, what are you going to give them and how are you going to help their company? So you really only can do that by giving concrete examples of what you've done in the past. So improving efficiencies, increasing sales, but more than that, use metrics. So increasing sales by how much? I said they acquired 10 new clients in the last 3 months. So they can kind of start thinking, okay, if that person comes on board, they can do the same thing for me. And that's how you're going to start opening doors and get calls for interviews, because that's what I'm talking about, getting them all warm and fuzzy about you straight away. Again, about the looks, making it friendly and pretty, reader friendly and pretty. Yeah, I mean, I would assume that you know that you should format it, you should use bullet points, no chunks of text. I saw a few CVs today that they were like novels. It was just far too much coming at you text-wise, and you just couldn't see, you couldn't break it up. So do break it up make it reader friendly. Use bullets, as I said. The opening paragraph is okay. There's a summary section is okay to use as a paragraph, but the rest of your CV, your work experience, your skills, anything like that should be in bullet form. Obviously, be careful of things like spacing, typos, all that kind of thing, but I would expect you to know that bit. People are asking about length of CV today as well. 2 pages is fine, 3 is actually fine, but commit. No half pages, no 2.5 or 1.5. Past 3 pages is probably too long. It means that you haven't condensed it, you haven't tailored it. So it's okay to have different versions of your CV. When clients come to me, I say, we'll have one good master copy for your reference. So that can be 20 pages long. That's for your reference. But then you need to break it down. So some people are looking for maybe different types of roles, or they're coming at it from a slightly different angle, maybe a people management one, maybe a more administrative one. So you'll have different versions of your CV ready to go. And then when you see that job you're applying for, then you'll just do the final tweak. Okay, so just to summarise on the CV bit, know your target audience. What are they looking for? How do you fit in there? Go through the job spec line by line. Identify where you've acquired similar experience. One size doesn't fit all. If you have a generic CV and you're sending that out to 100 applications, it's not going to work. Okay, so I say to clients, I'd rather you send 20 applications tailored than 120 generic. Okay, so target. No CV farming, as I've said. And how have you added value to previous roles? Metrics, tangible facts where possible. Okay, and lastly, just format it well. So that's the CV bit. Okay, the interview. Okay, so basically, a couple of points to remember on the interview. Do remember this is a two-way process. I know people feel that the interviewer has all the power, and you're on the back foot and you have no idea what they're going to ask, and you do know that, of course, you don't know what they're going to ask. But I think the thing to remember as well is that this is a two-way process, and they are looking to fill this role, and it's up to them to impress you also. If you're the right candidate for the job, you might necessarily take the job with them. So it's up to them as well to impress and kind of go through what they're offering you. They ideally want to know, well, not ideally, they do. They want to know, can you do the job? Do you want to do the job, and are you fit? And they're all quite important, equally important, in fact. So can you do it? Skills, do you have the qualifications? Do you have the previous experience? Do you want to do the job? So what are your motivations for coming in here to meet me today? Why are you going for the interview? Why did you apply for the job? And that's very important. I give you a brief example. When I was working in recruitment many years ago, I had 2 candidates going for an IT role. There was a guy, he had more networking experience than the girl, the female candidate, but she was much more interested in the job. She was extremely excited about the opportunity. And the client rang me back and said, thank you for sending through those 2 candidates, they're great. He said, I have a real problem. I can't decide which one to offer the job. He's got more networking experience, but she just seems just much more interested in. And I said, well, he said, what can I do? And I said, well, the way I'd look at it is that could you send her off on a networking course? And he said, train her up. And he said, yes. Can you make him want to work for you? You can't. So that is something that could actually not get you the job. If you feel a bit shrugging your shoulders, not that keen, not asking good questions, I know in my past from being a hiring manager, I wouldn't hire you because I don't think you want to work for me. Okay? And even if you're a bit short on the skill set, your enthusiasm and your ability to kind of maybe, I hate this expression, I don't think we can think of any other way of saying it, hit the ground running, can actually get you over the line. So that's something to bear in mind. Okay, so the interview itself, so most interviews will comprise of either, general questions, open-ended questions, competency-based questions, and then the technical questions for most jobs. So if you're an accountant or if you're in engineering or IT, they will generally drill down into sort of the specifics at some stage. You'll need to do your research on the company, obviously, and if you are dealing with a recruitment agency, that can be good and it can go to your advantage. So don't forget to ask them if they've any further information. Often what can happen, they can ring you up and say, hi, yeah, ABC Limited want to see you. You can be there Thursday, 2:00, great, and then they put the phone down because they're in a hurry. But don't forget to ask them. Say, can you give me some more information about the job? Have you met the hiring manager? What's he or she like? What kind of things do you think they'd be mostly interested about me? And especially if they've met them. I know when I worked in recruitment, I would do that for my candidates, is that, give them as much information as possible, okay? Okay, so the prep is really important, okay? So you have to know the job spec, the company, and it's not just about scanning through the job spec. You need to forensically go through it. This is your only hint here of what they're looking for. So it's in your interest to really tear apart that document and analyse it, okay? Key skills, competencies, they're giving you hints here, but if they are going to say, well, I see you don't have much people management experience, at least have thought through how you could counter that sort of argument, essentially. You could say, well, in the past I actually mentored junior members of staff, my boss was away, I actually stepped in for a couple of weeks. So any ways you can narrow the gap and the shortfall on your lack of experience, or just showing, let's say, for example, they say, well, I see you don't have much experience in Excel or SAP or whatever. I say, well, in my past, I actually had a system that I worked on, had no previous working of it, and within 2 weeks or a week or whatever it is, I was working on it and I was flying along in it. So once you can show or demonstrate where you've got over those hurdles, then the things like a weakness in your application won't be an issue. The thing to remember is they've called you for the interview, which means you have a good chance. That's the first thing. So for all those little weaknesses in your application, it's obviously not a big enough deal not to call you in. So competency style questions are becoming a much bigger player in the interview, especially public sector. You for sure are going to get that style of questioning. And you need to have those answers really, really, really polished. Private sector too, even if you're not specifically asked a competency-based question. So what I mean by that is, could you give me an example of good communication, where have you demonstrated good teamwork? They're looking for you an actual example, and you need to give an actual example. If in the interview they don't ask you, they say, can you give us a strength, for example, you can use a competency style answer to give it, and it actually really gives a very strong answer. And the idea behind it is you're pulling out a real life work scenario, a real life event that's happened to you in the past to demonstrate that skill. Often when people, I ask when I'm coaching, I do interview coaching, and I'm putting my clients in a mock interview, I say, why should I hire you? And they say, well, good attention to detail, I'm a good people person, good communication. And it's this sort of flat shopping list of words. That doesn't prove anything. So it's flat, it's insipid. So what you need to do is use structure like problem, action, result. So I'm a good communicator. If you'd like, I'll give you a very brief example. There was this situation only 2 weeks ago with a work colleague of mine, and I realised that she hadn't done the report that she was meant to do for the team meeting. And so you're going to go into the problem, the action you took, and then the end result. Trust me, if you get this concept, you will shine at the interview, you'll do so well, and it'll really get buy-in from the employer, and they'll say, well, gosh, yeah, I saw she, did that improvement in the system, how she handled that conflict situation, how she showed good teamwork, and before you know it, they're sold on you, okay? Do try and use metrics, and I mean by that's percentages. I had a client there, she was junior, a very junior client. She was just coming out of college really, and she did the Job Bridge program, and she got a work placement in a recruitment agency actually. She was in IT. So she was just doing data entry, nothing too taxing. And one day she just was observing the recruitment consultants coming out of this sort of cupboard area. And what was happening is before the recruitment consultant was ringing the client, they were going into this area for folders to see what previous business they had done with them. So to prep for the call. But the problem was it was very disorganised and it was taking them ages. So she kind of thought, well, gosh, that could actually go on a system. We could just scan it all on and we could just digitise it all. So she went into the owner of the business and said this, and he said, that's a fantastic idea. Go for it. Run with it. Take those other 10 interns. Just do whatever you have to do. And she did it. She digitised it all, got it all up in a system, and she came in and and I said, God, that's a fantastic example. I said, what was the end result? And she said, well, I hadn't really thought, but she went away and thought about it. She goes, actually, the sales reps were on the phone much more. And she said the quarter end results had gone up significantly. And anyone in sales knows that if the reps are on the phone more, the chance of making more sales. So what she did was she improved the process there. And the end result was her actions led to a positive outcome in the company. So if you can think of something like that, because she didn't think of it that way, but it was only until I kind of was talking to her about it that she kind of, well, I didn't really see it that way. So do take the blinkers off and do have a think about where you've added value to any of your jobs. Absolutely vital to know why they should hire you and why you want the job. They're the two key questions to have really clear in your mind before you go in. Do show a very genuine interest in working for them. As I said earlier, that could quite possibly get you over the line. On the day, so try and build a rapport, good eye contact, handshake. Your non-verbal language, whether they're conscious of it or not, they're reading all of that, okay? Not that I want you to be self-conscious about it, but, build a rapport. Get every opportunity to get in your key skills, your relevant skills, your achievements, your qualifications, okay? If you get stuck or blanket, or you don't know what they're asking you, or panic sets in, don't worry. One weak answer doesn't sink the entire interview, okay? And everyone's human. We realise that people get nervous. I remember before interviewing people, some people it doesn't bother them that much. They're going in, they don't seem that nervous. Other people seem completely and utterly traumatised by the idea of it. And their knees are knocking together and they're so nervous. And that's not what you want as a hiring manager. I just want to know, can you do the job? So if it does happen I always think it's a good tactic is to name it out and say, I am so sorry, you're fumbling over your words, or you're not coming together, or they've asked you a competency question and you can't think of an exam. Just say, I'm so sorry. Can I say, I'm just so interested in this job, I think the nerves have got to me. And you know what that does? It just puts a pin in the whole thing. And vast majority of people on the other side of the table will you're putting out a signal saying, look, the nerves are getting to me, I'm not at my best. And they might ask you, do you want to drop a drink of water? No problem. They might rephrase the question, and it just gives you that space, and you've named it out. If in a case where they ask for an example, and it's genuinely never happened to you, it's never happened. Say, well, actually, it's actually never happened to me. But I think if it did, I would deal with it this way. So it's not the ideal, but you just given a hypothetical answer. So at least you have something to say, okay? Money talk, only bring it up if they do, okay? I know you'd be dying to know how many millions they're going to be giving you, but you can't. I know it's tempting. And to talk about hours and overtime and holidays and all that kind of thing. You have to just leave that out of the talk for the moment. You can really go head to head with them on the salary and all that when you have a job offer in the bag. That's when you're a power to negotiate. Obviously, you want to know if there's second round, they're only paying you 35 and you're looking for 70, you don't want to be wasting your time, and I understand that. If they've any sense, they'll bring up the money at that stage anyway, okay? very end bit of advice, ask good questions, show interest in the role is absolutely vital. Under no circumstances, end the interview with saying, have you any questions? And you sit there and you go, no. Because two reasons really. One, you need to do your due diligence. Is this job for you? And the only way you're going to find out if you ask them questions about the role, if they haven't cleared up everything. If you don't ask questions, to me as a hiring manager, I don't think you're that interested. How can you not ask questions? There's a ton of things you can ask. A ton of things. And sometimes they might cover a lot of what you're going to ask. And if in the unusual case that you really have no further questions, say, well, actually, I was going to ask about career progression, I was going to ask about the setup with the team, I was going to ask about this, but you've actually answered that. So at least tell them the questions you're going to ask. Don't end it with a no. Okay? Do end it also, at the very end, say, I've no further questions, but I'd just like to say, I was absolutely very interested in the role when I saw the job spec. I'm only delighted that I was asked to come in and meet you today, and from meeting you and talking about the role in more detail and coming into the office, it's only confirmed my thoughts. This job is a very exciting opportunity. I'd be very interested. It's a very nice way of asserting your interest in the role, and I guarantee a lot of people don't do that. So I've given you a quick free tip there, and you all can do that. So do ask about the next steps. You want to know if it's going to take them 3 weeks for a decision. Are they going to let you know by next Wednesday? You know, if you haven't heard for a couple of weeks and you knew they were going to make a decision within a few days, it's probably not good news. They should regret you, but they don't always do what they should. And it's very frustrating as candidates. And it's my big bugbear when companies do that. I think it's atrocious when they don't, especially if you've gone in to meet them. But look, we can't do anything about it when people don't do the right thing. So, final checklist. Know what the company products are, any link between you and the experience. Know your CV inside out. Articulate fluidly about times you left, why you did that course. Be really fluid. Don't be, I think that was 2008. Oh, no, maybe not sure. None of that. You know your CV inside out. Be comfortable about your projects, tasks, work, scenarios, achievements, using POWER method, or in the case of public sector, it's STAR, S-T-A-R. Dates, when you left, particular jobs, reasons why, so that. Be clear in your head why you want this job and why you should hire you. Okay. Basics, confirm the details of a meeting. Location, give you loads of time. The one thing is, like, I had a client that went for a role with Microsoft a good few years ago, and Microsoft had 2 offices at that time, one in Leopardstown and one in Sandyford, and she turned up at the wrong place. So do know, especially with the larger companies, confirm. The hiring manager isn't always at head office. So do that, okay? All right, that's me. It's 4. I think if we can fit in a few questions if you have. Nice and loud if you don't mind. I can hear you. Anyone?
Or I can run around with the microphone.
Oh yeah, that could be good.
It could be the Annika Rice. Here, sir, I'll give you this.
Hello, thank you already. And just want to know, like you said, like for some skills you have in the interview to give some example, because it sounds like it's bad if you don't give an interview. But in the CV, what do you do if you put like good communicator? Is it enough, or do you have to put an example just to make it a little bit more interesting? You know.
You could use that in the. You could create a competency section on your CV if you wanted. So if in your role, generally there's, I don't know, communication or teamwork is a recurring competency looked for. You could actually do that, yeah.
But is it going to be too much at one point? Because if I do that to every skill, you know, if I put team player, then I put an example, it's going to be bigger and bigger, you know.
No, I mean, you have to use your judgment. You don't want to go past the 3 pages. So you want to kind of pick the most relevant ones. And it depends on the content of your CV. But, you know, again, it comes down to relevance, as I said at the start there. It's about chopping and changing what would be of interest to them. But you will find that if you're applying regularly for jobs, that the same competencies will come up. But, you know, one job might have a different emphasis on competencies than the other. So if you do spot that ABC Limited seem to be asking a lot about people management and the other company are much more focused on attention to detail, just a little tweak on the CV. You're just targeting what they're looking for. Okay?
Is it ever possible to go back to sorry, throwing my pen around. Thank you. Is it ever possible to go back to a company where and say to them, like, was there a reason you didn't choose me, or is that just a bit naive?
Yeah, it's very frustrating you didn't. Yeah, public sector are great for the feedback. Yeah, if you could do an interview with the public sector, they'll actually give you the score sheet, which is great. I don't know if people know that. Private sector are very, very skittish and cagey about that, and it's because it's just a litigation. It's the chance of being sued. They will give you probably more than likely something woolly, like you're a great candidate, but we just found a stronger candidate. You didn't have enough experience, and then even at that, they're reluctant to say that. You're not going to get unfortunately a huge amount of feedback from them.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else? Any more questions?
Back.
Hi, my question is about the previous jobs. If they ask you why did you leave your latest job, for example, if they dismiss you because you report that your boss was bullying you and they decide to fire you, how can you deal with that? Because usually you go to the WRC, at the end you make an agreement, and you have to say that you cannot talk about your previous position, your previous job because of that agreement. How can you deal with that?
So just to convert, you said bullying, was it? Bullying.
Yes, bullying, or even
it's
if
really
they
tricky.
dismiss you because it was not your fault, and you signed an agreement and you cannot talk about that.
This is a real tricky one, and I've had quite a few clients that have just had this conundrum. It's not your fault, it's a bullying situation, or for whatever reason, maybe even a performance issue, that they hired you and it was their fault. Their requirements didn't match actually, and you were being upfront about what you could do, and they were being unrealistic about what you could deliver on, and they end up realising it wasn't working out. It's a real tricky one, because it's, certainly if it's a bullying situation, at the interview it's very hard to come out and say, well, my boss bullied me, because they always think, you don't want to start bringing that into the forum of a thing, because they always kind of think, well, what was the other side of that story? You don't want to start you can get into a bit of a swampy situation of starting to talk about that. So my advice is generally, if there is sort of a civil parting of ways, you need to go back to your line manager and say, look, obviously I'm looking for work. What are we saying? What are we saying? Because your story needs to match with what they're going to say. If a company is going to look for a verbal reference, i.e. looking for a phone number and ring your line manager, what you don't want to be saying is one thing and then them saying another, because that's going to have a big problem. So the ideal thing is to just come to an agreement is what will we be saying. Okay. If it's a more difficult situation than that, and your boss will not give a good reference, by all means do not have their name on your CV or give it out. So you've options of, if you weren't there too long, you have to make a judgment call, maybe you leave the job off. If you were there a long time, you might look at somebody else that will give you a character reference. Okay, so that's a bit of a compliment. It depends on the actual case at hand, but that's generally my main advice when this kind of thing happen. Okay.
I have a question here from this lady.
Hello.
Hi.
About languages, should I put just the level or something more specific?
I missed the start.
Languages?
Languages,
like Spanish?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you should, yeah. Not absolutely vital, especially obviously if it's important for the role. So if it's a multilingual call centre position, yes, you go into the intricate details of your level of the languages. If it's not particularly relevant for the role, it's good to have it in your skills section. But you don't need to go in, you just say mother tongue or business level or whatever level it's at, or intermediate. Okay?
I think we've probably time for one more question.
Yeah.
Before we get hand right at the back.
I actually have two questions. My first question is that, let's say if my previous experience is not related to the job that I'm applying for, or not directly. For example, let's say if I'm working part-time somewhere and now I'm about to apply for a design agency or something like that, how do I tackle that, for example, in my experience? And my second question is that in terms of looks for my CV, should it be more extravagant? Because I've seen like some designers make their CVs very presentation based or something like that, but then in most cases I have heard that the employers are only looking for like the summary in one page, and it should be more simplistic, you know what I mean? So do you have any thoughts about that?
I'm going to tackle the second question first, because that's much easier to solve. Your first question is a big one. I'm not sure I can answer all that today. But basically on the look and feel of the CV, is Yeah, aim for kind of a more simplistic, basic, reader-friendly, except if you're in a particular area. Like I had a lady that I was talking to there a few minutes ago before the talk, and she was in kind of a multimedia area, graphic design area. So in that case, it makes sense to do something funky. But pretty much accountancy, IT, run-of-the-mill roles, just keep it simple. No glitz, no glamour, no pink font. Just keep it simple. Regarding the bigger question of your career and changing career, and was that what you were asking me? Yeah, I mean that's a tricky one, and it's about really using anything. If you've no work experience in that area, it's about using what other things you have. So your college course, your projects are going to be much bigger players until you get more experience in that area. Anything on voluntary work, I was talking to a few people today. If you're changing career or you're in college at the moment and you know you're going to be graduating next year and you're going to be going out to market, do try and use the college to try and see if you can get some voluntary work, because it just narrows the gap, and at least you're coming out of the starting blocks, coming out of college, but at least even if it's only one day a week or a couple of hours a week working in an office or working in IT or whatever area you are, it's about at least to have something down in the CV to say that you've got some exposure to that work. Okay, I think we have to wrap it today.
I think we do have to. I'm pretty sure we could stay here all evening and bombard you with questions. But thank you so much. Can we give Orla a massive round of applause, please?
Thank you very much.
Because that was fascinating. Thank you.